togas, waxing nostalgic about what a great idea would be, but it's not turned into anything. Elon Musk has a lot of great ideas. He hasn't built anything. He's like sort of well, we should do this and we can do that. If you take away government money, you haven't built a darn thing. And in Anchorage, because the community is so small, it's exceedingly dysfunctional because you don't have the luxury of hiding. You're there. Your neighborhood, it doesn't matter where you live, your neighborhood is experiencing crime. So it's not just, the stereotypical those parts of town. Everybody's experiencing crime. But if I say in my neighborhood, yeah, we've got a crime problem here, someone in a different part of town who also has a crime problem will say, well, what do you care? Most of your neighbors have their own businesses or they have good jobs. You don't live in the bad part of town. You don't have crime where we have crime. And so I don't know if not doing things the way we used to do things, we probably need to do things the way we used to do things. We've convinced ourselves that everything in the past was bad, and there's a cultural aspect to that, a racial connotation, and I get that. But not everything was bad. We've destroyed a lot of everything in the past out of hypersensitivity or ultra-awareness of the things.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Dave, when you see the 8-component wellbeing model, do you have any immediate... Now, from the perspective of designing our communities, what they're trying to achieve, do you have any reflections on how useful such a model is, or whether it is too abstract, too theoretical to mean anything?
Well, I think so the state is a little bit unique, and the country is a little bit unique. Frankly, it's honestly not very different at all from Australia. There's a sense of individuality, of liberty, of the freedom to experience and chart your own course and do these sorts of things. So the notion or the idea of a plan or an organized structure without the best leader is the leader who moves you in a direction you have no idea you're moving. But if someone was to, okay, we're going to reorganize as a model the city of Anchorage, and we're going to put these different priorities forward, people are just going to check out. What am I giving up to get to these things? What am I going to do without to move us to a greater success in one of those aspects that you put up? And even if generally in the mission statement, everyone would agree it's a good idea, it would be beneficial to the community, without the right leaders to sort of shepherd that along, in a week you just have a bunch of angry people who won't show up for the next meeting.
Dave, the sense of, what do I have to give up? What am I going to lose in order for this apparent new reality? Do you suspect it to be a strong sentiment within Anchorage to the point where it would preserve the status quo the way it is?
I think there is... I'll give you an example. So last year was a near record year for homicides. Record year for personal property theft, vehicle theft. So there was an election in the spring. The mayor was reelected handily. Now part of that is bad candidate, bad campaign, underfunded. But people have accepted the level of crime, historically, unprecedented, as the new normal. And they've even adopted the mindset that, well, all cities this size have these many homicides. And I can tell you categorically that's false. But for whatever reason, the collective mindset is, well, this is the new normal. We're going to complain about the new normal, but we have to accept it for what it is. Where actually, no, we're an anomaly. We're not like other communities our size. So we sort of, by vote, by example, by action, we drop into this rut. And, I guess the $1 million idea is how do you get people to change their behavior, even if their current behavior is bad for them?
The explosion in crime, Dave, do you have reflections on what you think has driven that?
I think, and I'm nowhere near an expert, I think the economy has a little bit to do with it. I think it's easier to ignore crime when you don't know who it's impacting, and as a culture across the country, we're just more siloed. We have fake friends on a laptop than we do to have friends and neighbors who we do things with. I think the state of Alaska and the city of Anchorage academically has been underperforming for 15, 20 years. And when you have kids going through your public school system whose future options are grotesquely limited because they can't read, they can't function in normal society, well, what do? You engage in behavior oftentimes that, of course, is bad for you. But it's easy to steal stolen property, get involved in the drug culture, able to do these things and offset that. So years of saying we need to improve education and not holding anyone accountable, I would argue, is an enormous component of that. More so than the economy.
On the 8 components again, Dave, do you think it's a case of, look, so long as the economy is strong and performing well, the other things should take care of themselves?
No, because there's always, every city, every community, every culture, small towns that have seemingly a strong economy, there's always a criminal element. I think that presupposes, with the economy going strong, things get better, that you have a workforce in a community that are only committing crimes because the economy is bad. So, in a year, we could go from 7% unemployment to 4% unemployment. The pools of people who are woefully ill-prepared to be productive members of society, that doesn't change. The funding mechanism for education in the state hasn't adjusted because of upticks or downturns in the economy. That's been relatively flat with a trajectory for inflation. So, no, tomorrow could be the next greatest oil boom, and you'd still have that percentage of population who couldn't do a damn thing with it.
Yeah.
They're dealing drugs yesterday, they're dealing drugs tomorrow, and it doesn't matter.
So, Dave, just coming back to an earlier point you made about individual liberty, and giving people the conditions for them to thrive in, to pursue their own path to happiness, for example, as opposed to reorganising a society according to a model. Is it the case you think the former is preferable to the latter, or is it some combination of the two?
Boy, that is an interesting question. So let's backtrack, because I'm sure you're familiar by now with the Alaska Native corporations and the different various Alaska Native communities have their own power bases. Some of it is on resource development. Some of it is in investment in the lower 48. Up here, they don't produce anything. Some of them is on an economic model that frankly doesn't sustain them, but you have state programs that offset that. And so they actually fight against resource development. Mining is an example. So when you talk about some sort of organization, there's some subgroups and sublocations that you drive yourself insane.
Yeah.
You try to put some sort of coherent process or structure in place, and you'd identify these different stakeholder groups. Well, they're not actual clean stakeholder groups, because on other issues very important to them, you'll have one Alaska Native corporation that's exceedingly pro-mining and doesn't understand why another one fights against it tooth and nail.
Yeah.
And so how do you build consensus? They haven't been able to do that for years.
It's like too many moving parts.
Yeah, and then it gets into some of those other